overseas trip, President Trump visits the Holy Land, including a place where no other sitting U.S. president has ever been. Protecting religious liberty.
This president spoke out against religious persecution of all people of all faiths.
Vice President Mike Pence addresses graduates at the University of Notre Dame. Surprise announcement.
Terrò un concistoro per la nomina di 5 nuovi cardinali.
Pope Francis reveals his selection of 5 new cardinals. And the Holy Father makes an admission about sports to a group of children. On EWTN News Nightly for Monday, May 22nd, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. On the second leg of his first overseas trip, President Trump is in Israel and the Palestinian territories, expressing optimism. He says he has a great feeling for peace throughout the Middle East. Correspondent Mark Irons is at the White House. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. President Trump is seeking a new peace plan in Israel. In a statement outside the home of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he spoke of his hope for cooperation among U.S. allies in the Middle East.
We can truly achieve a more peaceful future for this region and for people of all faiths and all beliefs, and frankly, all over the world.
The president, confident that peace can be achieved, made remarks at the home of the Israeli Prime Minister. This concluded a day of visits to high-profile sites in Jerusalem. The Western Wall, which he touched in prayer, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where Jesus was crucified and laid to rest.
What's happened with Iran has brought many other parts of the Middle East toward Israel.
While meeting with the Israeli president, Trump told of his talks with Arab and Muslim leaders in Saudi Arabia yesterday. He said those leaders are united with Israel in the battle against extremism and in defiance of the threat posed by Iran. The president of Israel agreed, but called for vigilance.
We must be sure that we don't go to sleep with a dream and wake up with a nightmare, with Iran, ISIS, and Hamas in our borders.
Nigel Gardner of the Heritage Foundation praises the president for trying to bring together the Christian, Jewish, and Muslim worlds.
It's important that all of the world's key religions unite together to defeat the ISIS threat, the threat of Islamist terrorism. And we do need, certainly, the Muslim world to be a huge part of that fight against the Islamists.
Tomorrow, the president will meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. He will also lay a wreath at a Holocaust memorial site. Lauren?
Mark Irons reporting at the White House. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Lauren.
On this first foreign trip, President Trump is visiting sites that are sacred to the 3 major world religions. He started off in Saudi Arabia, the birthplace of Islam. Now the president is in Israel, and later this week, he will meet Pope Francis for the first time. We head now to Susie Pinto, EWTN News Nightly executive producer. She's in Rome ahead of the president's visit. Susie, President Trump struck a more moderate tone on Islam in Saudi Arabia. Now the president is paying his respects at sites like the Western Wall and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Why are these stops today so significant?
Lauren, President Trump is the first sitting president to visit the Western Wall. That's the holiest place where Jews can pray. So for Israelis to see the president visit this holy site for them was extremely important. Now, before that, he went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. That church is built on the site where Jesus was crucified and contains his tomb. And of course, it's a destination for countless pilgrims who go to the Holy Land to retrace the steps of Christ. So today was full of lots of religious imagery, and Christians and Jews were watching all over the world.
Well, I think one of the things that President Trump wants to do is to broker a peace deal between Israel and the Palestinian, and that's a very important issue to Pope Francis, isn't it?
That's right, Lauren. Pope Francis arranged a historic prayer meeting here in the Vatican between the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, and former president of Israel, Shimon Peres, in 2014. They prayed together for peace in the Middle East. And Pope Francis really, it's an issue that's very important to him, and it could very well be an issue that the United States works closely with the Holy See on in the future.
You know, besides the Holy Father's meeting with President Trump on Wednesday, we're now finding out more about what the First Lady and Ivanka Trump, his daughter, will be doing in Rome. Tell us what's on their schedule.
Well, of course, after meeting the Holy Father, Melania Trump is going to visit a local children's hospital run by the Vatican. It's called Bambino Gesù. And Ivanka Trump is going to be meeting with a Catholic group, the Community of Sant'Egidio. It's a group that focuses on service to the poor and building peace around the world, and they're going to be discussing human trafficking. Now, the United States has been working for years with the Holy See on the issue of human trafficking, and so they're going to be continuing to work on this very important issue, which today now is the modern slavery of our time.
It really is incredible to see President Trump visiting all of these sites. Thank you so much, Susanna Pinto, our EWTN News Nightly executive producer.
You're welcome.
Vice President Mike Pence huddles with congressmen tonight to talk about pushing ahead the Republican agenda. The White House tells News Nightly the VP will talk about the upcoming 2018 budget, tax reform, and more. It comes a day after Pence praised the pro-life culture at one of the most famous Catholic universities, Notre Dame. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi recaps the big speech. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. Mike Pence says it's the greatest honor of his life to serve as vice president to President Trump. He spoke about the pro-life cause, religious freedom, and serving the poor. But it wasn't a totally welcome homecoming for the former governor and native son of Indiana.
Have faith that he who brought you this far will never leave you nor forsake you.
Vice President Mike Pence says Notre Dame has an ally in the Trump administration against the Obama-era contraceptive mandate.
I'm proud that this president just took steps to ensure that this university and the Little Sisters of the Poor could not be forced to violate their consciences.
And Pence praises the university for fighting poverty and protecting life.
Your commitment to social concerns melds faith and action to overcome poverty worldwide. Your focus on ethics and culture promotes the value of all human life.
The director of the university's Center for Ethics and Culture is proud of the campus's pro-life commitment.
Our Right to Life Club is the largest club on campus. We send 800 kids to March for Life every year. So it's institutionally a pro-life university, and that is just unheard of in the world of elite academia. And for Vice President Pence to recognize that, I think, is important.
But about 100 students walked out of Notre Dame's graduation, just as Vice President Pence began his speech. The Notre Dame valedictorian C.J. Pine also took some shots at the Trump administration.
If we are going to build walls between American students and international students, then I am skewered on the fence.
The vice president did not comment on the walkout, but he slammed other universities' policies, which Pence says limit freedom of speech. He says that's not the case at Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is a campus where deliberation is welcomed, where opposing views are debated, and where every speaker, no matter how unpopular or unfashionable, is afforded the right to air their views in the open for all to hear.
And Notre Dame is still fighting the HHS contraceptive mandate. They were forced at the very last moment, facing huge fines, to sign the form, the government form, triggering contraceptive coverage for their employees. But as the vice president just mentioned, they are promising relief for the university. Lauren?
Jason Calvi reporting on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Jason. President Trump announces his choice to be the next U.S. ambassador to the Vatican. As expected, the nomination goes to Callista Gingrich. She manages Gingrich Productions, a consulting and multimedia company. She's a member of the choir at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception here in Washington. And she is the wife of former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, an early supporter of Trump during the campaign. Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn says he'll plead the Fifth rather than turn over documents related to the Russia probe. In a letter to the Senate Intelligence Committee, Flynn cited escalating public frenzy in refusing to turn over records. Democrats say the committee will gain information other ways. And former FBI Director James Comey is expected to testify on Capitol Hill in the coming weeks. Both Republican and Democratic lawmakers say they will ask Comey if President Trump tried to interfere with FBI investigations. Joining us now is Tim Carney, commentary editor of the Washington Examiner. Tim, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you.
So we heard that Flynn is going to take the fifth here. How is this going to impact the investigation into Russia's meddling in the 2016 election?
Well, the investigation really is focusing in on Flynn. It seems that the investigation of sort of Trump world, Trump campaign, Trump White House really has more and more boiled down to Mike Flynn and then Paul Manafort, who was a campaign chairman for a period last summer. And that those two are the two that have had repeated conversations with Russian leaders and weren't always forthcoming and disclosing what it is. So Flynn pleading the fifth in the congressional investigation, that's really, it's focusing in on him, and he's the one who is really going to have the information to provide.
So you don't think that they will be able to get very far without Flynn?
No, I mean, I really think that when we talk about this as a Trump campaign, Trump administration, it's Mike Flynn, Paul Manafort. That's who the investigators are zooming in on.
So we also talked about earlier that the president is visiting the oldest religions, Christianity, Islam, and of course, Judaism. Callista Gingrich is going to be the ambassador to the Holy See. Pope Francis is going to meet with President Trump on Wednesday. How significant do you think the role of religion is in foreign policy?
Well, it's absolutely essential as we see this, and that's what Trump was trying to address in Saudi Arabia, where he was talking about Islam and differentiating that, as all his predecessors have, the difference between Islam and radical Islam, radical Islamic terrorism. That's at the heart of the fundamental foreign policy problem that we're facing, which is Islamic terrorism. And then Israel being in that region, they're having the sort of unique, tough relationship with them. It forms the entirety of our foreign policy, those two religions. And then Trump's campaign was very interesting on religion because he's not somebody who was forthcoming about his religion, but he realized it became an essential part of his political coalition was Christians here in America, and then later on, especially kind of observing Catholics. So it's all at the heart of what he's doing. It's why he picked this as his first trip, to show that he holds religion as a central part in geopolitics.
And moving to Mick Mulvaney, tomorrow is the budget release. He's the director of the Office of Management and Budget. He was on the Hill earlier briefing people. The White House is releasing the blueprint. What do you expect to be the hot points?
Well, so one of the hot points, I think, and it's very interesting from a Catholic perspective, is that the Trump budget, the original document that hints at what this will say, really makes a difference between what's the proper role of the federal government as opposed to what should be a local role or a private role. The idea of subsidiarity is almost baked into this budget, where it's saying this local schools, very important, but not a national issue. And so if the budget really makes that argument and says something being really important doesn't make it a federal issue, that I think can really highlight a difference between different ways of thinking on Capitol Hill, and maybe provide an opportunity for us to talk about subsidiarity, which we don't get to talk about all the time.
Which we never talk about, and most people don't know what it is as a Catholic social teaching, saying that things begin at the local level. All right, thank you so much. Tim Carney, commentary editor of the Washington Examiner.
Thank you.
North Korea provokes international ire with the launch of another ballistic missile. The country's leader, Kim Jong-un, says the medium-range missile is now ready for mass production and deployment. Sunday's test was the second within a week. North Korea says the missiles could strike U.S. military bases in the region or threaten U.S. allies like Japan. A bombing in Thailand strikes an army-run hospital, injuring more than 20 people. The explosion coincided with the third anniversary of a military coup. Although it's not yet clear who's responsible, Bangkok has witnessed at least 6 explosions since that coup in 2014. An Iraqi farmer is caught between 2 factions. Omar Rashad is a Kurdish farmer in northern Iraq. His farm is on what has become the unofficial border between Iraq and the self-governing Kurdish region. The divider was built in November after Peshmerga forces helped retake a cluster of towns from ISIS. Half of Rashad's land is on the other side of the line, and he says he's given up trying to cross over because he has to procure daily approval from Iraqi and Kurdish authorities. Catholic leaders in Venezuela call on the government to stop using bullets and tear gas against protesters. The Venezuelan Bishops' Conference helped promote yesterday's Day of Peace. This follows weeks of violent protests against the government. Marchers took to the streets again Saturday, but they were prevented from reaching the presidential palace, Supreme Court, and the Electoral Authority. The political unrest has left at least 46 people dead. Coming up, 5 new cardinals. Pope Francis extends the influence of the church around the globe. And Italian March for Life. Thousands of people join the procession to end abortion and promote life. Italy's 7th annual March for Life draws thousands of people to Rome. Correspondent Ed Pettin says the crowd in the Piazza Venezia erupted into loud cheers and applause at the end of the march. Pope Francis sent them a message calling human life an immeasurable divine gift. Archbishop Vigano, the Pope's former ambassador to the United States, was among the marchers. And Pope Francis surprised pilgrims gathered Sunday at the Vatican.
Con il collegio cardenalizio, con I nuovi vescovi, metropoliti, I vescovi e alcuni presbiteri.
During his normal weekly remarks, the Pope announced 5 new cardinals as they come from across the globe, including Laos, Mali, Sweden, Spain, and El Salvador. The Holy Father says the new cardinals represent the universality of the Church. Edward Pettin, Rome correspondent for EWTN's National Catholic Register, joins us. Ed, tell us about the new cardinal. What stands out the most?
Well, they're all really from the periphery, Lauren. They come from dioceses, with the exception of Barcelona, dioceses that have never had a cardinal before. And this is very much in keeping with Pope Francis's style of choice of cardinals in the past. They all have never had a cardinal. They come from largely the developing world. And so this is very much what Pope Francis wants to do. He wants to bring these churchmen really from the periphery back into the church, into the center of the church. And he's done that very much with these 5 cardinals.
How do the cardinals reflect Pope Francis's overall vision?
Well, you can sum it up really with 3 Ps, periphery, poverty and peace. All of them are involved in that in some way. The Bishop of Mali, for example, has been involved in peace and reconciliation with Muslims there. The Bishop of El Salvador is actually an auxiliary bishop, which is unusual to be for an auxiliary bishop to be chosen. He has been involved with Caritas. He's head of Caritas in Latin America. And then, of course, the others are all involved in very much in the periphery. There's the Swedish bishop there's never been a cardinal from Sweden. And even the Bishop of Barcelona was for many years a missionary in Zaire. So there's very much, this is very much sort of the characteristic of the choice of these cardinals this time.
I don't know about you, but I was very surprised by the announcement. Why do you think the Pope chose to do this right now?
Well, I think, as his predecessors have done, they like to try and keep the number up to 120 cardinal electors, which is the guideline of a limit, 120, which is instituted by Pope Paul VI. And they don't really want to go beyond that, but they do want to keep it up at that number. Really, because I think most popes, they want to keep their vision intact. They want to make sure it endures beyond their pontificate. And so by the fact that he's choosing these cardinals now, he's kind of ensuring that his legacy endures, if you like.
Very nice. Thank you so much. Edward Pettin, Rome correspondent for EWTN's National Catholic Register. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Lauren.
Well, we can't be good at all things. And Pope Francis even admits that as a kid, he wasn't very good at soccer. The Holy Father met with a group of children outside of Rome just yesterday, and one of them asked the pontiff if he played soccer when he was growing up in Argentina.
E per questo dal solito facevo il portiere.
Pope Francis said he was so bad, he was given the nickname Stiff Leg. And he adds he was usually the goalie, so he wouldn't have to move around. Up next, a beacon of peace. How a hospital in Bethlehem is bringing different religions together. And remembering St. Nicholas, months before the Christmas season. The Holy Spirit leads us to the truth, and we must open our hearts.
La Chiesa lo chiama il dolce ospite del cuore.
During his daily Mass, the Holy Father says he helps us bear witness to Jesus Christ, and he calls the Holy Spirit the great gift of Jesus. The Holy Family Hospital of Bethlehem, just 500 yards from the birthplace of Christ, delivers more than 3,000 babies every year. The Catholic Teaching Hospital provides health care for women and children and without regard to their religion, nationality, or ability to pay. We are delighted to welcome back Michelle Bowe, president of the Holy Family Foundation. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
You just got back from Bethlehem, where you were for a very long time.
I just got back and had a beautiful week there, spent a little time in the desert and spent time with the various clinics, and I'll have to say it was probably one of my best weeks at the hospital.
Well, I want to hear a little bit more about the hospital, but you know who else is in Israel right now. Yeah. President Trump is there. He met with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. He's going to meet with the Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas tomorrow. So based on your working in that region, what do you hope that these world leaders will accomplish?
I was hoping actually we could accomplish getting the president to visit the hospital, but it's a very short visit. But I'm hoping that they'll look around and they will see the grassroots movements of peace. Peace through medicine, peace through music, peace among neighbors, and just to take heart from the peace that really is coming up in a groundswell that the national leaders need to address, while the people in the neighborhoods are already bringing it to life.
Let's take a look at the map of the region that we have put together. There has been conflict here for so long. There's Bethlehem right there where your hospital is. You have the Palestinian territories of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. But your Holy Family Hospital, as you're calling this beacon of peace, doesn't have any religious exceptions. Tell us about the story about the one Muslim family that donated a relic to the hospital.
It was amazing. I walked into the NICU, and there's normally a large crucifix on the opposite wall, and I was surprised to see it wasn't there, but in its place was a gorgeous icon of the Holy Family. And I looked and saw the crucifix was just moved a little bit, and underneath this icon somebody taped a little piece of paper that said, "A gift from Zachariah." So I asked,
who is Zachariah? I guess it's this little boy right here.
That beautiful baby.
Yeah.
And when I was there,
but
and
he's Muslim, is that right?
He's a beautiful Muslim baby. He was intubated, and he was a very sick, premature baby, the first for his family. And when the mother came in, I could tell she was a Muslim because she was scarfed and she had on an abaya. And I asked her, well, why did you buy this beautiful icon for us? I said, why didn't you wait till he left? It would be a thank you gift. She said, it's not a thank you gift. This gift is because the Holy Family looks over the doctors and the mothers and the babies and the nurses during the day. And at night, when the parents go home, we know the Holy Family is taking care of our babies in the NICU.
Oh, how beautiful is
my heart.
that? How wonderful.
It was the best. It just was so wonderful.
And so it seems like it is a cauldron of peace in that hospital. Well, thank you so much for coming in, for all of the work you do on behalf of the Holy Family Foundation. Michelle Bowe, president of the foundation.
Thank you.
Relics of St. Nicholas, one of the Russian Orthodox Church's most revered figures and the inspiration for Santa Claus, were brought to Moscow on Sunday. They were brought from an Italian church where they have lain for more than 900 years. The agreement to send the relics to Russia was made in last year's meeting between Pope Francis and Patriarch Kirill, the first meeting of the heads of the Russian and Roman Catholic churches. What a beautiful place that looks like. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, I'm Lauren Ashburn. Don't forget, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I'll see you again tomorrow night. Good night, and God bless.